JB, thank you so very much. And I'd like to begin with a day that I will never forget. August 31st, 2011, and that was the day that I was going to kill myself. That was the day that the monster, that's what I call clinical depression, had finally convinced me of a whole slate of awful lies. What I believed to be true was that I was worthless and useless and stupid and pitiful and grotesque, that I had no redeeming value. And if that wasn't enough, the tipping point was what I believed to be true in that moment was that if I killed myself, everybody in my life, my then wife Deanna, my family, and my friend, they wouldn't be sad. They'd actually be joyful because their lives would improve. And of course, none of that was true, but that's what I believed. And the great chef David Chang, who has suffered from his own fight with bipolar, says this about depression. He says, when you're depressed, you're convinced that everything you think is true. The chef is 100% right. And so was living about 30 minutes north of Sacramento and woke up on that morning, got in my fire engine red Dodge Dakota pickup truck and drove just 20 minutes to what's known as the Forest Hill Bridge. Now, the Forest Hill Bridge at 730 feet tall is 500 feet further off the ground than its more famous cousin, the Golden Gate Bridge, just a couple hours away. Parked my vehicle, slowly made my way then to the midpoint of the bridge, pressed my body up against the barrier, and then looked down 730 feet at the North Fork of the American River and prepared to not so much jump as to fall. Somebody saw me. They called 911, and a sheriff's deputy, as JB said, approached me from the left-hand side, and it's important to note he didn't make contact with me. He created connection. Connection creates hope, and hope saves lives. Was taken off the bridge to an emergency room and then 15 days in a lockdown psychiatric facility, which was an incredibly positive experience. But when people found out where I was and why, they couldn't get their head around it. I didn't look much different then, 13 years ago, than I do now. And who people saw me as the happy guy, married to this wonderful woman, Deanna, who together ran a nationally recognized end-of-life animal sanctuary called A Chance for Bliss, home to as many as 100 animals at any one time, featured at one point on June 2nd, 2010 as the half-page cover story in the Life section of USA Today. But there I was 14 short months later on a dark spot on a tall, tall bridge, one heavy thought away from killing myself. But I'm here today. I'm here today because of connection, because connection creates hope, and hope indeed saves lives. And before I go into the connection part, I just want to just answer the questions that most people, of course, would have is like, my dear God, brother, what happened? How did you get to that point? And what happened was I inherited the genes of my beloved father, my James Hamilton Bartley. Everybody called him Ham, and he was crippled by debilitating depression. My paternal grandfather, who I never knew because he killed himself, suffered the same. So I inherited those genetics, but my three beloved brothers, John, Jim, and Tom, older than I by 6, 9, and 11 years, there's no hint of depression, thank God. So what happened to me? And it was, as JB had referenced, trauma. And the definition of trauma, it's important to understand what the impact of trauma is. Trauma is defined in the dictionary as severe and lasting emotional shock and pain caused by an extremely upsetting experience. At a minimum, talks about what I suffered at 12 years old, and that was being raped and sodomized on repeat occasions by a Boy Scout leader when I was a brand new scout. And so the genetics lit aflame by this trauma began what has been, because I still fight this thing at 61 years old, has begun a 50-year battle. And depression is an awful enemy. As the chef said, it convinces you of things that are not true. But I have been incredibly blessed with amazing, extraordinary, beloved human beings in my life that have and continue to support me on this journey from hellness to wellness. And so was taught and engaged in therapy and medication and support groups and And really the pivoting point was to learn to put my self-care on a pedestal, because I can't give from an empty well. So it's about diet and sleep and exercise and time outside. As mentioned, my meds, my therapy, my support groups, my own spiritual journey. But it really, the most important thing, regardless of whether you're suffering from mental illness or whatever life's condition is, it really is all about connection. And I use the definition by the great Brene Brown, who says, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and they derive strength and sustenance from the relationship. Oh, that's perfect. Of course, that's what we all want. And how can we feel anything except hope when we're in that space of feeling seen, heard, and valued? And then, because I like to make things tangible, I like to have things be so you can hold them. What is hope? Dictionary definition: the feeling that what is wanted can be had. So you think, okay, I'm having the experience of being connected, seen, heard, and valued. I'm in this space of feeling hopeful that whatever it is that I want, and for somebody like me, so those of us, my brothers and sisters out there who suffer from suicidal intention, what we want is the end of our pain. And so track with me here that then if I'm in that position and I have the feeling that what I want, the end of my pain, can be had, I'm safe. So what I would advocate, what I believe, and belief is powerful and it's personal. Hope is the single most powerful suicide prevention weapon of all time. And then the question then becomes, okay, God, I believe what you're saying about connection. Okay, that's the dictionary definition of hope. Then tell me, brother, how do you create connection? And I said, I'm so glad you asked, because you can create connection anywhere, anytime, any place with anybody. And it's important, before I share these 3 ways, I want to share with you a quote from the great Dr. Drew Ramsey, who's an esteemed psychiatrist and really championing about attacking this thing called suicide. And here's what the great doctor says. And if you forget everything I say, listen to what the doctor said. Someone you see today is thinking about killing themselves. Your smile, your question, your love could save them. Trust me, they told me it did. So you know what that means? Is we're holding in our hands the ability to save lives. And so my take is recognition, understanding, and expression. Recognition, what I would ask you is just to go out and just become a practitioner of becoming great with remembering people's names. Next time you go to a restaurant and the server comes up, whether they introduce themselves or not, just find out what their name is. And then every time the server comes back throughout the course of that, say, 1 hour or so, use their name. Thank you, John, for doing that. Thank you. And just look to see the evolution of the relationship. Because recognition, the great Dale Carnegie said that to a person, the sound of that person's name is the sweetest sound in any language. Just practice it. And then next is understanding. And what I would ask is the next time that you see something, that you're in the front of something, somebody's behavior, what you see on the horizon, whatever it is that you don't understand, resist the temptation to ask the question why. In fact, from this day forward, I would like you to promise me you will never ask why. Why is a very defensive question. Why are you doing that? Change it to what. It's not why did you do that? It's what inspired you to do that? And watch the difference in the responses that you get, because what is such a beautiful question. So recognition is all about names. Understanding is all about leveraging curiosity to allow somebody ultimately, especially when their behavior makes no sense, your conversation with them, the leveraging of what, maybe how, allows them to tell their story. And there is an incredible quote that talks about from Maya Angelou that says, there is no greater agony than bearing the weight of an untold story. You can alleviate that agony by saying, would you please share with me how you feel? And then all you do is listening. And the quote from Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen that says that our listening creates a sanctuary for the homeless parts in another person. So simple. And the last thing is expression. Just we got to let people know how we feel. So until 3 years ago, August 31st of every year was the worst day of the year for me because it was the memory of the day I was going to kill myself. And so I woke up 3 years ago. I was angry. I was irritated. I was disappointed. I was sad. It was all these different emotions. And really, no one wanted to be around me. And I went to the mailbox and kind of opened up the mail. And there was this envelope with my name on it, handwritten. So it was personalized, but there was no return address. And I rip open the envelope. And there was this card that it's hard to see here, but it's a picture of a glacier. And it says, advice from a glacier. I really don't care what a glacier has to say to me on this day. But just in case you're wondering, the advice, the glacier says, carve your own path. Go slow, channel your strength, smooth the way for others. Bleh, whatever. I don't care. And I'm going to throw the card away. Thank God I didn't. So open it up, and in big orange crayon letters, it's hard to see right here, it says, happy today. From a dear friend of mine named Greg, who knew that day was going to be hard, and so he expressed himself to me. Hey, just a note to remind you that you are an extraordinary person with so much to give so many others. You are a tremendous source of healing just by your personable presence. This is not only my sentiment, so many others also believe in you. Believe in yourself, reject the lies. I love you. And you know what this card did? This simple card changed August 31st of every year from the worst day of the year. And you know what it is for me now? New Year's Day. And you know what my New Year's Day celebration is every year since? I drive back to the bridge. And I park my vehicle in the very same spot. And I make my way to the midpoint. But on the way to the midpoint, I make sure that I make eye contact with every single person. And I say out loud, Happy New Year. And I hit that midpoint. And I don't look down. I look up and I look out and give thanks. And that was all because a friend knew my story and did something about it. So it's about recognition. It's about understanding. It's about expression, connection. Connection creates this thing called hope. And hope saves lives. And I'll end with this, JB. This is to repeat the quote by the great Dr. Drew Ramsey. Someone you see today is thinking about killing themselves. Your smile, your question, your love could save them. Trust me, they told me it did. Thank you all so incredibly much.